I am sitting by the window right now. It is freezing tonight. A dry, biting wind always rattles the thin glass of this small apartment, making my shoulders shiver. I pull my heavy sweater tighter around myself. I can smell old dust in this room. And maybe a little bit of stale air. It is a very lonely smell. My name is Martha. I am 60 years old. If you look at me now, holding this chipped teacup with shaking hands, you would probably just see an ordinary, tired widow, someone the world simply forgot. But my life wasn't always this empty. Sometimes I close my eyes and try to remember how it all went so wrong. It's strange, isn't it? How you can make a choice out of pure love, and it ends up destroying everything. You think you know the people you raised. You think you are safe with your own family. I whispered to myself just this morning, I thought giving away everything I owned meant I would be loved forever. That was my biggest mistake. A few years ago, I gave my entire life savings to my only son, David, and his beautiful new wife, Sarah. Every single penny I had. I didn't hold anything back for myself. I just wanted them to have a perfect start in life, and I wanted to be part of their happiness. I never expected to be thrown out. I never imagined the very people I sacrificed everything for would look at me like I was a burden. I never thought I would end up here, listening to the loud, distant city traffic, completely abandoned. The pain of that betrayal was a heavy weight on my chest. For a long time, it made it physically hard to breathe. I felt so foolish, so used. But life has a very surprising way of teaching us lessons. The story I want to share with you isn't just about how my heart was broken, because the real shock wasn't the day my daughter-in-law threw me out onto the street. No, the real, unbelievable twist came 2 long years later, on a bitterly cold night just like this one, when she finally knocked on my door. Before everything changed, my life was very quiet. I lived alone after my husband passed away. I was a simple widow. I had my small garden. I had my regular morning routine. I woke up at 6 o'clock every single day. I watered my plants. I made a simple pot of tea. My old house was too big for just me, but it felt safe. Then David met Sarah. They got married in the spring. They were so young and full of big dreams. They wanted to buy a home to start their new life, but houses were very expensive in the city. They worked hard, but they did not have enough money for the deposit. They were struggling to save up. One Sunday afternoon, I made a big decision. I invited them over for lunch. After we ate, I brought out a small blue folder from my bedroom desk. It held the bank papers for my entire life savings. It was every dollar my husband and I had saved over 30 long years. I sat down and slid the folder across the wooden table. David looked confused. Sarah just stared at the thick stack of papers. "This is for both of you," I said softly. "Consider it my investment in our family's future." David started to cry. He stood up and hugged me tightly. Sarah held my hands. She smiled warmly and promised they would take care of me forever. The plan was very simple. They would use the money to buy a large, beautiful house. I would sell my old, empty home and move in with them. We would be a real family under one roof. 2 months later, we moved into the new house. My room was absolutely perfect. It was the large guest room on the first floor. Every morning, warm golden sunlight poured through the wide window. I woke up to the rich aroma of morning coffee brewing in the kitchen down the hall. I felt completely at peace. I spent my quiet days planting bright flowers in their new backyard. I folded their clean laundry. I prepared warm dinners while they were at work. I loved taking care of them. It gave me a deep sense of purpose. In the evenings, we sat together in the living room. We watched television in the soft light. We did not talk much, but the silence was comfortable and calm. It was a good, peaceful life. I felt useful. I felt truly safe. I did not know the peace would end so quickly. I did not notice the subtle signs of trouble. I just focused on the bright sunlight in my room and the comforting smell of coffee. I was a happy mother, living quietly in a dream that was about to break. I often ask myself when the warm atmosphere in the house began to turn cold. Was it after 6 months? Or maybe a year? I did not notice it happen all at once. It was a slow, quiet shift that completely changed my reality. At first, I thought I was just imagining things. I would walk into the living room to watch the evening news, and I would hear Sarah let out a heavy, tired sigh. I wondered to myself, is she just exhausted from her job? Did she have a bad day? I always tried to find a logical excuse for her distant behavior, but the feeling of being unwanted started to grow inside my mind like a dark shadow. The comfortable silence we used to share slowly turned into a heavy, awkward silence. Dinner times became unbearable. I would sit at the wooden table, staring down at my food, listening to the sharp, tense clinking of forks against plates. My stomach would tie into tight knots. I lost my appetite completely because the emotional tension was so thick. Then came the Tuesday evening that confirmed all my deepest fears. I was standing by the sink, quietly peeling potatoes for a dinner stew. Sarah walked in and dropped her bag on the counter. She looked at me, her eyes hard and visibly annoyed. "Do you always have to be in the kitchen when I am trying to cook?" she asked. Her voice was not loud, but it was sharp and cruel. I froze in place. I could feel a cold sweat breaking out on the back of my neck. I thought I was helping her. I thought I was contributing to our home. But as I looked at her frustrated face, my mind raced with confusion and hurt. I whispered a quick apology, gently put down the knife, and hurried away to my bedroom. I sat on the edge of my bed for hours, staring blankly at the wall. My heart was racing. I thought about my son, David. Why doesn't he ever notice this? Why does he just look away when the tension grows? That night, alone in the dark, the truth finally hit me. The beautiful house I bought for my family was no longer a safe place. A cold sense of dread settled deep in my chest. I realized, with a sinking heart, that I was no longer a loved mother. I was just an unwanted guest taking up space. The next evening, the heavy tension finally boiled over into an open argument. We were sitting around the dining table. The only sound was the sharp clinking of our forks. "David, can you pass the salt?" Sarah's voice cut through the quiet room. "Here," he mumbled. He did not look up from his plate. "Thanks. Though honestly, this chicken doesn't need salt," she said, dropping her fork with a loud clang. "It needs flavor. Did you just boil it, Martha?" I stopped chewing. I felt my face turn hot. I baked it, Sarah, just like I always do." "Well, it is incredibly dry," she snapped. "I work 10 hours a day. Is it too much to ask for a decent meal when I get back? I am tired of giving up my comfort in my own home. Sarah, please." David whispered softly. "Please what, David?" She shot back, crossing her arms. "I am just being honest. I can't even relax in my own living room anymore without feeling watched." She pushed her chair back violently and walked away, leaving her food completely untouched. I waited until the house was quiet. I walked upstairs and found David hiding in his small home office. "David?" I knocked softly on the open door. He jumped slightly. "Mom, hey, what is it? Can we talk for a minute?" I stepped inside. My hands were shaking. About how things are going here." "I am really busy with work, Mom," he said. He stared hard at his computer screen, completely avoiding my eyes. "David, please say something. I am your mother." I took a deep breath, trying to Stay calm. Sarah is so angry with me. I don't know what to do. I feel like a stranger here. You didn't do anything wrong, he sighed heavily, rubbing his face. She is just stressed out. We both are. Just let it go. But she speaks to me like I am a burden, I said, my voice breaking. I gave up my life savings so you could buy this home. Don't bring that up, he hissed sharply. He looked quickly toward the hallway in absolute panic. Just figure it out, Mom. Stop making it so difficult. Just stay out of her way, okay? He turned his back to me and put his headphones on. I stood there in the doorway, completely stunned. My own son was too weak to stand up for me. It happened on a Tuesday night. The television was playing softly. I was sitting on the edge of the sofa. I was quietly folding clean towels. Suddenly, the front door slammed open. It hit the wall with a loud bang. Sarah stormed into the living room. Her face was dark red with anger. She threw her heavy purse onto the glass coffee table. The loud crash made me jump. I cannot do this anymore, she screamed. David ran down the wooden stairs. He looked absolutely terrified. He stopped in the middle of the room. Sarah pointed a shaking finger directly at me. I want her out, David. Today. I cannot breathe in my own house. She is always here. She is always in the way. I dropped the towels onto the floor. My heart raced in my chest. My palms broke out in a cold sweat. I stood up quickly. My legs felt incredibly weak. Sarah, what did I do? I asked. My voice was shaking. You exist in my space, she yelled. She stepped closer to me. Her eyes were furious. Get your things. Pack your bags right now. I want you out of this house tonight. The room started spinning. I could not believe her cruel words. I turned to my only son. I reached out my trembling hands toward him. David, I begged. David, please say something. Please stop her. I gave you my life savings. Where will I go? I waited for him to defend me. I waited for him to protect his mother. David looked down at the floor. He swallowed hard. He stepped back. Moving away from my reaching hands, he refused to look into my eyes. Without saying a single word, he slowly turned his back. He walked straight into the kitchen and shut the heavy wooden door. He completely abandoned me. The silence in the living room was deafening. The betrayal hit me like a physical punch to the stomach. I gasped for air. I felt completely shattered. I had sacrificed everything for their happiness. Now I was being thrown out into the dark. Go pack, Sarah ordered coldly. I did not cry while I packed. I just remember feeling completely numb. My hands moved mechanically, folding my old sweaters, placing them inside a single, worn-out canvas suitcase. The rough texture of the fabric scraped against my shaking fingers. I stared down at my few belongings. How do you fit an entire lifetime into one small bag? My mind felt fragmented. It jumped erratically from one painful thought to another. Did this really just happen? Did my son actually walk away? I kept staring at the bedroom door, waiting for David to open it and tell me it was a terrible mistake. But the door stayed firmly closed. The only sound was the heavy, hollow echo of my own footsteps in the empty, dark hallway as I finally walked out into the night. The next few days are still a foggy blur in my memory. I had very little cash left in my purse. I managed to rent a tiny, run-down apartment on the far edge of the city. It smelled intensely of damp wood and old cooking oil. There was no warm golden sunlight pouring through the windows here. Just a single flickering bulb hanging from the cracked ceiling. I sat down slowly on the bare wooden floor in the corner of the empty room. The freezing cold seeped directly into my bones. I gave them my home. I gave them my future. The thoughts looped in my tired brain over and over, making me dizzy. Every single dollar. I gave it all away for absolutely nothing. I hugged my knees to my chest. I whispered to myself in the dark. How did I end up so completely alone? That was the exact moment the protective shock finally wore off. The tears came fast and hard, and I could not stop them. I broke down entirely. I wept until my throat burned and my eyes swelled shut. My chest felt incredibly tight, crushed by the heavy weight of absolute despair. The intense grief quickly began to ruin my physical health. I lost my appetite completely. I could not sleep for more than an hour at a time. My body became incredibly frail and weak. I would lie awake on a thin mattress on the floor, listening to strangers shouting in the dark street outside. I was a 60-year-old widow with no savings, no family, and no hope. I had truly hit rock bottom in the darkness. 2 long years passed. I slowly learned to survive. I found a part-time job at a small local bakery. I woke up at 5 o'clock every single morning. I walked through the quiet streets. I smelled the warm, fresh bread. The customers were polite and kind. They did not know my painful past. I liked it that way. I saved a little bit of money each week. I bought a real bed. I bought a thick, warm blanket. My life was very small, but it was safe. The sharp pain in my chest slowly turned into a dull ache. I learned how to be alone. I finally stopped waiting for my phone to ring. I completely let go of the hope that David would ever call me. I simply accepted my isolation. It was a dark Tuesday evening in the middle of winter. The temperature dropped very low. The bitter, dry wind blew hard against my thin window. The small heater in the corner hummed quietly. I made a simple cup of tea. I sat in my old chair. Then I heard a sound. It was a very weak knock. Someone was standing at my front door. I put down my chipped teacup. My hands were perfectly still. I walked slowly across the room. I did not feel afraid. I just felt curious. Who would visit me here? I turned the metal lock. I pulled the heavy door open. The freezing wind rushed inside immediately. A young woman stood on the dark porch. She was shivering violently. Her face was pale and drawn. She looked incredibly frail. It took me a few seconds to recognize her face in the dim light. It was Sarah. She wore a thin winter coat. Her lips were almost blue from the biting cold. She held something tightly in her right hand. I looked down. It was a single, worn-out canvas suitcase. She looked exactly like I did 2 years ago. We did not speak right away. The silence between us was heavy and long. I looked into her tired eyes. The deep anger I expected to feel did not come at all. "Martha," she whispered. Her voice broke. She looked down at the floor. "I have nowhere else to go." She started to cry quietly. She let go of her suitcase. She stood in the bitter cold, waiting for me to make a decision. I stepped back and pulled the heavy door open wider. I didn't say a word. I just pointed inside. Sarah dragged her canvas suitcase into my small apartment. She stood in the middle of the room, shivering violently. "Here," I said softly. I picked up my thick blanket from the bed. "Sit down." She wrapped it around her shoulders and sat on the edge of my old chair. She looked around the tiny, dimly lit room, her eyes quickly filling with fresh tears. "I am so sorry, Martha," she started. My voice was shaking badly. I didn't know where else to turn. She paused, taking a deep, uneven breath. "Everything is gone." I sat across from her. My heart was beating fast. "What do you mean, Sarah? What happened to the house? Where is David?" When I said his name, she let out a loud, broken sob. He He left. He completely abandoned me. She wiped her face, but the tears just kept coming. I didn't know, Martha. I swear I didn't. He had a secret, a terrible gambling problem. I stared at her in total shock. Gambling? He gambled away the house, she cried, hiding her face in her shaking hands. All of it. The bank took everything. He had been doing it for years. That is why the tension was always so bad in the house. He was hiding massive debts. My mind went completely blank. My life savings, the safe home I sacrificed everything to build, gone. For a brief, sharp moment, a hot wave of deep resentment rushed through my blood. I wanted to yell at her. I wanted to tell her she deserved this pain for throwing me out into the dark. And then Sarah hesitated. She looked down at the wooden floor. I got very sick. I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. When I finally came out, he was just gone. He ran away from the debt. He ran away from me. She looked up at me. Her face was pale and completely broken. I am so sorry for how I treated you. I was so stressed and angry back then, and I just took out all my frustration on you. I was so wrong. I sat there in the quiet room. I looked at this frail, terrified young woman. She was in the exact same dark place I was 2 years ago. I took a slow, deep breath. I could choose to be cruel and take my revenge, or I could choose grace. I will go boil some more water, I said quietly, standing up. You need a warm cup of tea. She looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. You are not going to kick me out? No, Sarah, I replied. My voice was suddenly very steady. We have both lost enough already. I walked into a small kitchen. We sat together that cold night, drinking hot tea from chipped cups. And for the first time in 2 years, neither of us felt completely alone. It has been 3 full years since that bitterly cold night. Sometimes I sit by the open window and simply let the gentle morning breeze brush against my face. I listen to the soft sound of Sarah humming in our small kitchen. I smile to myself. It still amazes me how much a single life can change when you finally let go of the past. Rebuilding our lives was not easy. We had no money and no permanent plan. We just had this tiny apartment and each other. But day by day, we slowly created a new routine. Sarah found a modest job at a local bookstore, and I continued working at the bakery. We pooled our small incomes together. We shared the cooking, the cleaning, and the quiet evenings. I often look back at the deep pain of my past. Remember the heavy resentment I carried when my son David walked away. It was a dark, toxic feeling that made me physically sick. But watching Sarah heal from her own devastation taught me a profound lesson about life. I realized that holding on to anger only poisons the heart of the victim. If I had closed my door to Sarah that night, if I had chosen to be cruel, I would still be a bitter, lonely old woman. I had to make a choice. I had to forgive the unforgivable. I learned that true forgiveness is not about saying what happened was okay. It is about setting yourself free from the heavy weight of hatred. I watch Sarah now as she brings 2 warm cups of tea to the table. She is no longer the cold, angry woman who kicked me out. The extreme hardship completely transformed her, just like the cruel betrayal completely changed me. We share a quiet, beautiful understanding now. I used to believe that family was just about bloodlines. I thought giving away my life savings would guarantee my place in their hearts. I was so wrong. True family is not built on money, investments, or even shared DNA. It is built on shared grace. It is built on the choice to open your door when someone is hurting, even if they once hurt you. We lost a beautiful, expensive house, but we survived the darkest hours of our lives. In this rundown, tiny apartment, I finally found exactly what I was searching for. I found a real, unbreakable home. Hello, my friends. Thank you for staying with me and listening to my story today. I know it is not an easy story to hear. I decided to sit down and share this deeply personal part of my life with you because I know how many people are secretly suffering in silence. In our modern world, we are so focused on making money, buying big houses, and showing off perfect families. We forget what truly matters until it is all suddenly taken away. When Sarah first knocked on my heavy door that day, freezing night, I had a very difficult choice to make. I could have screamed at her. I could have listed every cruel thing she ever said to me. I could have slammed the door right in her face. Honestly, a small part of me really wanted to do exactly that. But I took a deep breath and asked myself a simple question. Will breaking her heart finally heal mine? The answer was no. If you are going through a painful time right now, I want to give you 3 practical takeaways from my long journey. First, holding on to resentment is exactly like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. It only destroys you from the inside out. You have to let the anger go if you truly want to survive. Second, moving forward is impossible if you carry the heavy weight of the past. True resilience isn't just about surviving hard times. It is about keeping your heart open and soft when the world is incredibly cruel. And third, lasting peace usually comes from the most unexpected places. I thought my ultimate safe place was a big, expensive house with new furniture. But my real peace is right here, in this small, run-down apartment, sharing a quiet cup of tea with the person I finally forgave. Now, I want to ask you a very important question. Have you ever had to forgive the unforgivable? Have you ever experienced a deep betrayal by someone you completely trusted? Thank you so much for watching. If my journey touched your heart today, please remember to subscribe to the Escape English. We share emotional, real-life stories like this every single week to help you practice your English and learn valuable life lessons along the way. Until next time, take a deep breath, be kind to yourself, no matter what happens, and always remember to leave a little room in your heart for grace.